s'appelle Lucky Luke, de l'Est au Far West. Il arrive au galop, le cowboy héros. Son tiré plus rapide que son ombre. Et son revolver va plus vite que l'éclair, au sacré Lucky Luke. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. C'est lui qui a le truc pour nous étonner. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. C'est un homme qui n'a peur de personne, même pas des Dalton. C'est lui qui a le truc pour nous étonner. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. Même les Dalton, qui ne craignent personne, ont peur de Lucky Luke. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. Celui qui a le truc pour nous étonner. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. Oh sacré Lucky Luke. Et hors la loi n'échapperont pas au tir de Lucky Luke.
Bang, bang, Lucky Luke. How's it going, everybody? It's Sunday. It's the time for a wrap. This afternoon, Rasa and I, you'll have to pardon me tonight. My allergies have kicked in something fierce. I don't know what's going on. My eyes are leaking and all sorts of fun stuff. So this afternoon, Rasa and I had a chat on this channel talking about what we've been reading and stuff. So if you want to check that out, go back and have a look. I thought today I'd start with I've been buying music for a while, tapes and things like that. And then it was record store day. Normally I don't go out for that sort of thing. But there was one record that surprised to myself. First of all, existed. And then a shop in my town actually had one copy. So I had to drive across town to make sure that I got it. But I bought a number of records over the past little while. So I thought I'd just quickly talk about some music. So the one that was record store day was Metal Machine Music Volume 2. So if you know the Lou Reed album, there's a few stories around the existence of that album. The main one is that it was recorded to get himself out of a contract, a record contract. It's kind of infamous bit of noise music. If you know a little bit of hello, Lucky Crack, Eliza, how you doing? If you know a little bit about Lou Reed and people that he was associated with, like Terry Riley, Lamont Young, and things, people like that. So some of the minimalists, it may not have solely been to get out of a contract. So this one is fantastic. It's got Emile Beaulieu, which is Ron from Records. Lydia Lunch is on here. Moonbeam Terror is on here. Eros, Blixa Bargeld, Podblotz, Martin Rev from Suicide, Merzbow, and Masana. And the gimmick at the end on the final side there, the Merzbow Masana side, it plays from the inside out. And the Masana is kind of a locked groove. So it's a 4-second track that just gets into a locked groove to end the album. And then another to a surprise as well inside is a really great booklet. Let's put that down there. And it's Franz de Ward doing a bunch of stuff. So Franz from Capote Music, talked about him. If you've read the Merzbow Substack that I have, the Merz Stack, there's some, I think there's at least one review that I did where it was Merzbow and Capote Music trading music back and forth. But we also know Franz from the Ron, from the records, the Emile Beaulieu book, basically talking about Ron and his time in noise and his record shop. So that was a really nice surprise. Little write up on each of the artists. And then there's a few interviews as well at the back half. There is a brief interview with Merzbow. It's funny, they try to tie in these tracks into Lou Reed and that Metal Machine music. And it's funny reading the interviews There's not much that ties it in, really. It was just an excuse for kind of a little more of a mainstream label, I guess, to put out something. And I mean, more power to them. I hope these artists got a fair sized stack of cash for contributing. Lydia Lunch in this one too, actually, she says that she's actually not a fan of noise music. She finds it very dull, which I thought was pretty funny. So that's that one. So I was amazed to see that was available here in town. So I'm glad I got my hands on it. Of course, I've listened to it. Of course, it's fantastic. I mean, there's some tracks that are better than others, obviously, but there you have it. Another amazing find a few weeks ago now, probably a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure. Big fan of Brutal Truth. I saw them come through. They opened for Napalm Death when they were touring with Brutal Truth. Brutal Truth was touring with their first album. This is like album number 2, possibly. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure it's their second kind of full length. Need to Control. I've got it on CD. I'd heard of the existence of this, but I've never seen it in person. It's got a 5-inch, a 6-inch, a 7-inch, an 8-inch, and a 9-inch record inside that has the whole album on it. So, yes, very gimmicky, but good to kind of have in my hand, to be honest. And this is, it's a solid album. It's, again, not my favorite from the band, so there's kind of the stack of them. It's not my favorite from them, but there's some really, really exceptional tunes on this one. I'm really partial to Extreme Conditions, their first album. I love Kill Trend Suicide is probably my favorite of theirs. And it's one that gets panned by a lot of fans of the band, just the way that it was recorded. I think the recording kind of adds to how much I enjoy that album. It's kind of a mess. It has this kind of extra chaos that I think really lends itself to the music. Endless Blockade and Bastard Noise split 12-inch. Not much to say about them. Bastard Noise really crossed a lot of genres, from like noise to grindcore to just really bonkers stuff. And Endless Blockade, I don't know too much about Endless Blockade. I'm familiar with the name, heard a couple of pieces before, but looking forward to. I haven't started listening to that one yet. Kind of in the grind vein again. This is Drop Dead, another band I've never seen. When I actually went to pick up the Record Store Day, he had a pretty amazing selection of grindcore and metal and stuff. Not a ton of it, but the stuff that he did have was real choice stuff. So there was a few that I had kind of put aside that I didn't end up getting. Let's see, things are falling down here. Give me a sec. Morton Subotnick, Quadraphonic Sidewinder is this one. Morton Subotnick, synthesizer kind of legend. He's done a bunch of stuff, and it's all kind of really, really quality. This was almost an immediate listen as soon as I got home. I've heard this before. I might have this on CD somewhere, but having it on vinyl is the way to go. A different record shop. Actually, one thing else from the place where I got the Record Store Day. I've been looking for this forever. Osamu Kitajima Ben Zaiten. It's a 1976-ish. The review was 76. I'm assuming it was recorded in 75, 76. Oh, recorded August 1974 is when this was. This is a fantastic kind of like prog mixed with some traditional Japanese instruments, mixed with synthesizers. So we got keyboards, guitars, basses, acoustic guitars, shakuhachi, Tizumi, I think is how you pronounce that. A show, a synthesizer, some flutes. There's an Ace Tone rhythm machine as well too on this. So drum machines, Really, really great. I've been looking for this album for a long time. I've got another record by the same artist, and it's nowhere near as good as this one. This was, again, an immediate listen when I got home from a different record store in town. He had an amazing library music section. Library music, if you're familiar with the 60s Spider-Man cartoon, that's a really good sample of guys like Alan Hawksworth and Alan Hawkshaw, and Sid Dale and people like that. The music that was all over that was library music. Library music, there was a bunch of record labels that sort of provided music for film and television. And they'd all kind of have a pseudo title and then a description of what kind of music you would find on it. So, for example, this one's got Industria Go-Go, which is energetic and movement. Furnace, which is solid and repetitive. Problematic, which is strange and dark activity, etc., etc. So, Attention Machinery, which is ponderous and march-like. So to kind of give you a sense of what kind of music you were getting. These are kind of sought after by like some hip hop guys because there's a lot of sampling that's happened from this style of music. I rarely see those around, so I grabbed two of them. This Sid Dale special is much different than the Hawksworth one. This one has a real, I don't know, it's like a real kind of lush. It sounds very 80s, but it's pretty damn good, man. Again, when you listen to all of this stuff, all you can think of is these old TV shows, even though there was nothing that I recognized from any shows. So this is Amphonic Music Limited is the company here, which is another name I haven't heard of. I've got a great book. I think it was put out by Johnny Trunk, and it kind of goes through the history of library music a little bit, but what it does mostly is just show off some albums, some jacket art and stuff. So that's the music I've been listening to. Let's see. So into what I've been reading this week, we'll kind of go backwards from where I left off with Rasa. This was a book from, I think it was Phoenix Comics. Is that what the first place was called when I went to Calgary? They had a whole bunch of bins. The more you buy, the cheaper things got. He gave me a bit of a deal on top of it. I bought a couple of things from them. One of it was that giant stack of books that if you've seen that video. So this one called Lore from 1994, I think, from Con City Comics. Don't know where they're based out of. I'm not seeing. Oh, here we go. Highlands Ranch, I think that's Colorado. Curtis Elzy is the artist, writer. What does he credit? Writing, pencils, inks, cover, additional graphics, raconteur, and dragon slayer. So this is the first in what was going to be a long series from him where you were going to grow along with the artist and along with the characters. This has some kind of charm to it that I can't quite put my finger on. The story is dull as all get out. Lots of characters. The sort of D&D-ish type of adventure that you did see a lot, especially in the 80s with some of this stuff. But it also feels like an artist that is kind of coming out with a bit of a different vision at times, and I would be really curious. I haven't dug into this artist specifically to see if they continued in comics or art or anything, but it feels like some of the things that are being experimented with here are sort of early stages of something that could have blossomed into who knows what, a bit more of a unique vision. I can't say I've ever really seen anything like this. It has some of the trappings of, you know, those mid 80s comics, you know, with some of the character faces and things, but there's a real good use of white space. He gets attacked by these two sort of ghosts that you can only see out of your peripheral vision, which is such an interesting idea just on its own, that he kind of has to start fighting. But I kind of dig images like that with the snow hills in the background and these black figures sort of dancing around him as he fights, and we get introduced to 3 or 4 other characters. There's some cool textures going on too here. Oh, then there's also a giant white creature that ends up grabbing him and kind of throwing him off a cliff, to be honest. This page sort of stood out to me as well. A bit of kind of manga-esque ideas going on here, especially with that background. I'm not sure what that is coming out of him. Some sort of I will live again. I don't know if it's supposed to be like energy beams or something, or it almost looks like he's getting impaled by something. Very odd. And these kind of just straight lines for textures instead of cross hatching, I think, is the biggest thing that stands out. Solid blacks, solid white, or sort of straight lines. Even when it comes to kind of like the smoke that's happening up here, just broken up straight lines to illustrate that. So fun to look through, dull as hell to read. I don't think that there's any more. I have a feeling that this is the only thing that Con City Comics put out, but pretty unique little book there. I don't know if I'd pay $1 for it. If you see it out there and it's 25 cents, I'd say give it a shot. Read some more Herman stuff. Paulo Costa was in the chat this afternoon as well, too, giving some information, and shout out to Russ Works as well from last week, who mentioned in the comments that Herman had died about a month ago. Paulo kind of backed that up too when he was with us this afternoon in the stream. I think it was in March. So this is Hey Nick, Are You Dreaming? Which is Herman and his brother-in-law, Paulo was telling us, Morphe, who didn't do too much as far as comics writing, but was an editor for some French comics magazines, including, I think, a Boy Scout one, I think Paulo had said. So it's their take on Little Nemo and Slumberland, and the two main characters, Strange Captain Bang. The Captain Bang is one of the characters, and then Nick is the other one. Herman left a hell of a legacy. He sure as hell did for Jarelli. And I'm so glad that I've been able to find some different stuff from him on this last trip especially, but I'm really glad he's somebody that I've been able to find some stuff by over the years. Not his usual watercolor stuff. I think there was 3 books. So this is put up by SAF Comics, which later got sort of absorbed by Venture was the line, but Dark Horse. Let's just see at the front here. Was Dark Horse still doing this at this time? No. So this is Strip Art Features from 2004. And I think from looking on Lone Star, I think there was 3 volumes of this that were put out in English by SAF. I'm not sure how many exist in total. This was a really just nice little story. Very much, I guess, the usual, the love letter to Nemo and Slumberland. Nick goes to sleep. He wakes up in the middle of the ocean. There's a wrecked ship out in the distance, and he discovers Captain Bang. Captain Bang's thing is that when he gets very angry, he'll explode into a puff of smoke, leaving just his hat behind. And eventually he'll come back wherever his hat is. Herman was an Earl Grey discovery for me. Oh, nice. We find a bunch of animals in the crates that he's towing along behind him that Captain Bang was going to bring to his zoo. And that's kind of the premise for the rest of the short stories. It's broken up into chapters. And it's Nick trying to save these animals from the treacherous Captain Bang. Real nice colors in here. Nice to see a bit of a different style from him as well, too, that I haven't really seen before. It's always been his watercolor work. Yeah, what else can I say about it? Just great. Looking forward to hopefully getting my hands on the rest of these if I can find them at some point. This one, on the other hand, I think this might have been my favorite read of the week. This is Rodrigo, written by Eve H. and drawn by Herman. This is from Venture Comics, which is a Dark Horse. So Paulo was saying, I think he said that this was like volume 12 of a giant series that was going across kind of a generational type of story. I think this one takes place in the 1400s, I think is what it said at some point. The very basic premise is, so first of all, I'll say I didn't know that going into reading this, and this reads incredibly well just on its own. I don't know any of the backstory. Reading this and knowing that there is backstory, I think I'd love to dig into some more, see if I can find some more. Because if it's near as good as this, this might be a hell of an epic story here. So the very basic premise is our main character, Rodrigo, and his father. His father is the king of this little region. And they're sort of part of this feudal system where they're going and taking over land from the Muslims and just gaining more territory for their king. He's in a bit of rough shape, and he's sort of starting to get Rodrigo set for taking over his throne there. And there's a look at some of that, his beautiful night work, which I pointed out last week in that Jeremiah volume. I have the Dark Horse Herman stuff like Jeremiah. Last I checked, they were super expensive. Yeah, I have just one of those books. I'll grab it in a second here. I've just got volume 1 of that. There was also a signed graffiti design slipcase art book thing. Amazing. I've never seen that. I'm sure that Earl Grey's got a couple of videos spotlighting his work. I'll have to do a dig. The way that this story is laid out is really fascinating. We get a look into his kind of day-to-day life and the priests that are with them in their castle who are translating some of the books that they're grabbing from these missions where they're conquering people. And he's starting to translate some of the books. And one is apparently a sort of like a handbook that guides you through your dreams and talks about what your dreams are trying to convey to you. So Rodrigo has been having dreams of, he can't quite place it, but there's a lot of, he's covered in blood and there's screaming and yelling going on. And he just kind of is haunted by this imagery over and over again. The way that they unfold all of that and talk about Rodrigo and talk about his life and his uncle, who apparently is just this evil piece of garbage. Even the way that they talk about the uncle and his story unfolds is just told wonderfully. This was such a riveting kind of fun read. Yeah, I don't know if it was dealing with any territory that was really groundbreaking, but it was just a solid experience. So I loved this book a lot. This will be something that I try to hunt down some more of for sure. So that's Rodrigo. Continuing with the hardcovers from Calgary, in the used bookstore, there was a non-English language comic section. It was just a couple of shelves. It had stuff that was in French, in German, etc. So it wasn't just French like bande dessinée, but there was a bunch of different languages kind of mixed up in there, and all comics, some very much kids' books and some stuff like this. This one caught my eye for the art, and pleased to know that when I flipped through it, it was all silent. So with the help of Google Translate into the back, there was some German talking about this creator, and he talks about living in Poland and not knowing the language at all. So this is his experience of kind of wandering around the city. His apartment, I think, overlooked like a bit of a market or a town square, and some of the characters that he would see there. And he'd kind of make up these stories about them. Couldn't understand a damn thing that anybody was saying, so decided to present it in a silent story. So there's 2 stories here. The first one is really short. This old man coming home from buying some groceries, and you go with him on his walk all the way to his house, and kind of see everything that he's seeing. At one point, you see a little bit of maybe he has some ulterior motives, that he sort of gets caught mid stab anyway. All of the art looks like it's kind of etched and printed. It has a real kind of fisheye lens to most of the images and most of the panels throughout the whole book. When he gets home, he talks to his dog and kind of relates to his dog, his day. And of course, the story he's telling his dog is completely different from what we've just experienced. And at the end, produces an ear from the bag with an earring from that woman, feeds the ear to the dog, and he puts the jewelry away in something where he's been collecting it for what's probably a long period of time, because there's a number of jewels in there. And then the second story does a really nice job of this sort of the beginning is the end, and it sort of just kind of creates this circular storytelling. Guy waking up in his bed with this poster in a ship. By the end of the story, he's on the ship looking at an empty bed. Really, really nice again. Just really simple, clear storytelling with gorgeous looking art. So this was a real nice pickup. So Claudius Gentanetta, and I think Paula was saying that Gentanetta has some credits on IMDb, and there's a website for him as well too. I'll try to go back to that video and pull out some of that information and include it in the description here. But this book is called Hysteria. And speaking of Earl Grey, Editions Moderne, I have a feeling that I've heard Earl Grey talk about this publisher as well too in some of his videos. The graffiti books were super duper hard to find. There was Katinga and Blood Tide with Eves H. Nice. I will keep an eye out. Martian Manhunter, I think I talked about it last week. I realized that I was confused because I didn't have issue number 9. I had missed issue number 9. So I rectified that, and I was able to find, there wasn't that many copies left at my shop, but what they did have was this variant cover, which is gorgeous, by, I think that says Dan Hip. The writing is so goddamn small. Does it say at the back any bigger? No, it doesn't. I'm pretty sure it says Dan Hip, though. This was probably the best issue of this second half of Absolute Martian Manhunter. 2 more issues to go. Number 10 just came out, so 12 issues total for this one. This one really filled in some gaps, obviously, but I found that the story that they're telling here, what's happening to our kind of Martian Manhunter and looking at this other Martian that's sort of taken over our main character, filling him with this doubt and showing him weaknesses in people and the way that they kind of think, their sort of paranoias and I don't know, some of their negative self-talk, I guess, and including his own when he kind of goes to meet with his now ex-wife with their counselor. He's letting all this stuff get to him. And as you're reading the story, it kind of has this woozy kind of flow to it, and the colors being the way that they are and the panel layouts being the way that they are. For example, seeing stuff like this here, really nice, these kind of layers, almost like pictures in front of a person, right? On top of a Operation style board game as our Martian Manhunter is getting cut open in another part of the story. Really, really used to good effect here. Stuff like this is a fantastic page. Those greens and stuff in there with this, I don't know, layering of the panels as it's super easy to read. Is the thing that always impresses me about this book is that the inventive kind of layout and the way the speech bubbles are sort of laid out on the page too. I never find myself kind of confused with the flow of the story. Sometimes maybe the intent is left up in the air a little bit, but the flow is usually incredible on this. But solid goddamn issue. I'm going to be sorry to see this go. I wonder what they're going to have next. And finally, for this issue, you saw a teaser for it at the beginning. We'll see if YouTube catches me and edits that out when this goes live. Lucky Luke, the Dashing White Cowboy, a Lucky Luke adventure number 14 from Cinebook. There he is, drawing faster than his shadow, which is such a great little gag. I did some digging because I wanted to watch some of the Lucky Luke cartoon, and I found there was a Lucky Luke TV show, I guess, that was done a number of years ago. I'm not exactly sure when it was done, a live action. So I downloaded the first, I think, 5 episodes of that. I'll be curious to see if that's anything worth watching. I had a quick kind of look at the first minute or so of the first episode. Who knows what it'll be like. So Lucky Luke, along with Asterix and Obelix and Tintin, I've talked about before. This stuff was readily available in our library in French. Growing up, I remember seeing and flipping through these books multiple times. Lucky Luke was one that always stood out. We even watched the cartoon, even though we couldn't understand it. It's that bang, bang, Lucky Luke who just really caught in my head for all of these years. So great to see that stuff again. And his art style is it's just beautiful. It's really, really nice looking. Like this character here, he runs into a group of actors that are going kind of town to town to put on these plays about this white cowboy. We get some history of some of the other towns and what entertainment they had back in the West. And the second kind of dramatic act, perhaps more unusual, but certainly more typical of the Far West, the reenactment, in which a man who has become famous, thanks to some notable action, tries to cash in on this notoriety by playing himself on stage. So we get a guy, Bill Slimy, for example, whose claim to fame is having captured the redoubtable Sioux chief Pink Elephant, and he's having a bit of stage fright. Stage fright? What are you talking about? I'm not having stage fright. Look who I'm presenting in front of. So, little kind of gags like that. There may be some depictions that are a little off color, but that's okay considering when this was. This was 75, I think, something like that. So 1975 is when this was. The lettering is something else that really stood out to me. It has this very nice hand done, almost like a bit of a flair to it. I don't know if that's focusing or not, but hopefully that's coming up there. Looks really, really great. Just really nice, clean art, really nice, solid coloring. We're just telling stories here. We're not looking for crazy details. We're not looking for crazy textures. We're not looking for crazy paneling or anything. Just very, very straightforward. Look at that. Even that night scene there is really great too. So the silhouettes on the horses. Yeah, solid. An absolute joy to read. I think this, along with that Nick, or Hey Nick, Are You Dreaming, were just nice reminders of just some of the stuff that I end up reading. Not that it's all heavy, heavy topics or anything, but it's nice to kind of take a step back and read stuff like this too. That's really just aimed towards a much younger audience. And it's just very, very enjoyable, just enjoyable reading. So keeping my eyes out for more Lucky Luke for sure. Might have to see about doing an order to Cinebook. Maybe I can get myself a couple of other volumes. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it. Oh, I did read some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well, too. I don't have them handy. I'm not sure where I put them. Kind of caught up with the main series, and I was briefly talking about it with Rasa this afternoon, and I'm enjoying it more than I was. I'm starting to like the art a bit more too. The story is just okay. I I think I'm just in a flow of picking it up. It feels like it's the usual. It's hard to separate Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from like the toy line and everything that sort of became for them. This almost feels like a comic to introduce a bunch of new toys. At one point, there's this skeleton that comes from the world of the dead back to the world of the living. Splinter, who's kind of back and is this kind of vengeful, I don't know, not quite a god, but this vengeful entity, is able to transform himself into a giant rat type of skeleton so he can grab his sons and put them in his chest and close his chest on him. I mean, I could see that as a toy where that chest plate would open up and you could put the turtles in there and stuff. So it has that kind of feel to it, which is pretty fun. It's no Journeys, but it's pretty good. I was hoping to read Journeys, but I'm missing an issue. So I've got to try to dig out issue number 6. I've got to go on the hunt for issue number 6 so I can keep up with that one. Also read the latest Kaya. I might have talked about that last week. Maybe I didn't. The latest issue of Kaya I thought was really great. Issue number 34. Issue number 34 of Kaya. We're full on into... They've gone separate paths. Kaya and Jin have gone separate paths. Talked about it quite a bit. Kaya's story is way more interesting than Jin. It's feeling like it's coming to the conclusion that I think we all suspected, was that Jin was maybe on the path to be sort of the villain of the story, even though he's the one narrating it. And then Kaya is going to be the one that's leading the forces against him. It feels like we're getting closer to that. Well aware that there could be a bait and switch coming at any moment. But Kaya's story is pretty great. Just this kind of reluctant champion of the people. She's hooked up with this circus troupe. There's a bunch of humans that are on the train that are going to get thrown out. And you can almost see her kind of sigh and go, I guess I've got to do this. Please don't throw them off. Let's keep them. I'll watch out for them. I promise they won't be any trouble. But you can see that she just doesn't want to. She really doesn't want to. She knows maybe she's had visions of what her future is. And we have, as the readers too, that she becomes kind of this leader of this rebellion force. And this is just her reluctantly taking over because nobody else will, which I got a real kick out of. So solid book still. Apparently it's going 50 issues. This chapter, I think, might only be a couple of more issues before we get the last volume of the book. So we'll see how he ties everything together. That's it. That's a lot of talking in 40 minutes. Thanks very much, everybody, for hanging out. I don't have the Lucky Luke intro or outro for you, so maybe we'll just watch the intro again. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk to you.
On l'appelle Lucky Luke de l'Est au Far West. Il arrive au galop, le cowboy héros. Son tir est plus rapide que son ombre. Et son revolver va plus vite que l'éclair au sacré Lucky Luke. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. C'est lui qui a le truc pour nous étonner. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. C'est un homme qui n'a peur de personne, même pas des Dalton. C'est lui qui a le truc pour nous étonner. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. Même les Dalton, qui ne craignent personne, ont peur de Lucky Luke. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. Celui qui a le truc pour nous étonner. Bang bang Lucky Luke, bang bang Lucky Luke. Oh sacré Lucky Luke. Et hors la loi n'échapperont pas au tir de Lucky Luke.